Hello and welcome to another edition of Fit Conversations. And I thank you for always participating in these broadcasts. Listen, tonight we have an exciting guest with us who has done some tremendous things both inside of the community of Fort Wayne and outside of the community of Fort Wayne. He's known nationally for his expertise in rightly dividing the word of truth, but he is a leader par excellence, and so we're going to have him to come and share with us today. Listen, you probably want to get you a pad and a pencil and prepare to take notes because this is going to go very, very deep. Pastor Pettus, glad to have you with us today.
Glad to have you. I'm going to give you an offering for that introduction.
Well, we'll take it. You know, Baptists, they don't turn that off.
Right.
Hey, it is an honor to have you here, and I definitely wanted to get you in. I mean, I am still on the mountaintop from your leadership conference. I mean, it was outstanding time of fellowship, outstanding time of information. And as we have talked about it since then, it's something that needs to be duplicated in multiple settings throughout our community and beyond. But before we go into that and what we want to talk about tonight, I want you to get a chance to just chop it up with you and tell us about your journey to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Well, you know, coming to Fort Wayne was unique in regards to, I was settled in my church, my home church. Had been pastoring there for almost 12 years, and received a call and said, pray about it. And I'm like, okay. And so didn't give it any thought. And so Pastor Jordan called me again and said, you been praying? I'm like, no, I haven't been praying. So he said, man, I'm serious. You know, he said, I believe you're the next, pastor here in Fort Wayne at Progressive. And so I said, okay. So, man, one thing led to another. I came and I preached, and honestly, as I preached, I'm like, okay, and I left there and shared with my wife. She was like, well, how did you feel? I'm like, I don't know, And then I did an interview and went through that and taught a Bible study and then preached again. And literally this process, I knew it was God for this reason. In the Baptist church, you will never see a Baptist church have one pastor leave and the next pastor in within 30 days.
30 days?
Yeah, like he announced.
Wow.
I preached there July 4th, 2004, on a Sunday morning. He announced to his church, I think 2 days later, that he was going to be leaving, going back to his home church in Chattanooga. And that process went real quick, from there it was the interview, from there it was like, okay, we want you to do a Bible study, we want you to come preach again, and I was busy, and so I had an engagement in Houston when they wanted me to come, and so he's like, man, we're trying to get this done. I'm like, okay, so I called my friend in Houston, and he said, oh yeah, come anytime. So I came, did the interview. What impressed me most was the Bible study.
Wow.
There were 200 or 300 people at Bible study. That impressed me the most. And so I preached that Sunday. After the Tuesday Bible study, they had question and answers Sunday afternoon. Monday, the meeting was at 7 o'clock. At 7:20, they was calling me saying it's done.
Wow.
And I'm like, huh? And they was like, yeah, vote's over. You won 212 to 18. And so, coming here, I knew it was God because I confirmed every step. I'm like, Lord, if you don't, want me to be here, don't let the interview go good. Don't let the Bible study go good. But because I wanted to be sure, I was comfortable where I was. I pastored the church I grew up in. And so no issue. Matter of fact, we were smack in the middle of renovations.
Wow.
We had just finished a new office suite downstairs in the lower level, conference room, copy center. I never got to use the new office. And so coming here, I knew why God sent me here. Just shared with my church a couple weeks ago, God sent me here to disciple. And so many people say, well, which would you prefer, preaching and teaching? I love both, but I'm at home teaching. I love teaching.
So how long has it been now?
Man, in May this year, it'll be 19 years. Can you believe that?
No, I can't believe it. It doesn't seem like it's been 19 years.
19 years. Yeah. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time passes.
Man.
In the process of these 19 years, I mean, what do you think, giving our geographical setting
Okay.
at Fort Wayne,
Okay.
what do you think has been the most challenging?
I think the most challenging is leadership. You know, when I first came, the first thing I started was a monthly leadership meeting.
Okay.
I started teaching 5-star church.
Okay.
And, you know, going through that and looking at the response to it, and I'm like, I ain't really not grabbing that, you know. And yet, you know, when you say leaders, you know, there were a lot of professional leaders, but as it relates to church and church leadership, it was more business leadership than church leadership, and they both have to be married.
They have to be married.
They have to be married.
So now after 19 years, wow, I'm just sitting here because I remember when you came. It doesn't seem like it 19.
Yeah.
I guess I just aged by 19 years.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I'm married to Pettus. We have 7 children. She had a daughter. I had 4 children when we met. And then we have 2 children together. And it's been a great journey. Been a great journey. My older 3 kids live now in Birmingham, Alabama. They're down there working with PMJ. My other 4 are here in town. Still got 1 in college, 2 in college now. And believe it or not, my baby was 4 months old when we came here. And now she's a freshman in college.
Wow.
And so I'm like, man, time has moved. So,
Time has moved.
Yeah.
Time has moved. Well, one of the things that I remember when you came in, one of the things that over the years that I have admired about you, we both have a fondness for technology.
Yeah.
And Logos, and you actually are one of those, my term, professors. You teach Logos to other pastors and churches, et cetera.
Yeah.
How's that going?
You know, it's my second love.
Wow.
I mean, you know Logos.
Yeah.
And for me, I was a word search buff.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
I had word search since '92. And so, you know, I introduced a lot of people to word search. I used to work for word search. And then, you know, I got into Logos maybe around 2000. Then I went to Morris Proctor's seminars. I think I went to at least 3 of them. And then...
Now, for those that don't know who that is,
Morris Proctor was the licensed trainer for Logos.
Yeah.
And just went home to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and so I went to 3 of his conferences. The last one I went to was Murfreesboro. It was online. I did that one. And then they came out with 10 and announced that Word Search was being bought out by Logos. And many guys all over the country was calling me saying, hey, you know, man, what we gonna do? You know, Logos going. And so I've been telling everybody, listen, Word Search still works.
Yeah.
But I keep telling them there's gonna come that day where you're gonna click on that icon and it's not gonna work, you know? And so I'm like, but the good news is, and I was so excited about this one fact, that every book that you bought in Word Search migrated to Logos.
It migrated right over.
Man, that was the best thing that could happen because I switched over to Mac maybe several years ago. And Word Search didn't run too well on the PC.
Didn't run too well. Yeah.
And so I was grateful for the fact that everybody was like, no, man. I was like, no, that's the best thing that could have happened, you know, so.
I even like the fact that you can scan your hardcovers into the you know, your paperbacks, etc.
Yes.
You know, that leadership conference that you put on a couple of weeks now?
Yeah, been a couple weeks.
I've gotten fuel out of that and several different places I've been since, and I've talked about it. You and I are of the same mindset, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, or among the things that we glean coming out of COVID, is we begin to see where some of the holes were.
Yeah.
Some of the flaws.
Yeah.
Some of the weak places,
Yeah.
if you would, spots, and general, and in leadership, and particularly. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do when I was researching and participating in is look at some of those areas, what I gleaned coming out of COVID, that was some of the weaknesses of the church in general, but the African American church specifically. Yeah. And one of the glaring weaknesses, I think, was that of technology.
Yes. Major
Achilles heel within the African American church in general. Pastors struggling, trying to pastor, trying to get through COVID, and not knowing how to stream, how to get all that stuff together, et cetera. And for you, who was already doing it, and we were already doing it, it was almost like, okay, let's on to the next one. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
When you think about the church today and that gap of technology, what is the solution? What do we need to do?
I think number one, we have to have a greater respect for it. Honestly, when COVID hit, I talked to you. Yeah. Hey, what are you using? What camera are you using? And we had the cameras mounted up in the ceiling, but we installed them in 2007. Outdated. And so, man, you turned me on to the Sony A7 III, and I'm like, there it is. And so immediately when COVID first hit and we couldn't go to church, the first thing I went out and did was I went out and bought a 4K video camera, Sony. Okay. And so I was using that, but my knowledge of the lighting, and because we had stage lighting and everything else, but my knowledge of adjusting the lighting through the camera and everything else was very minimal. And so I went through a learning curve of learning, what the camera could do. And then when you showed me the A7 III, I'm like, okay, so I got that, man. I started going to YouTube, and the real thing is this, I look at being tech savvy, but you on a whole nother level. And so I respect that, and the thing that blessed me was your willingness to share. I still have the Elgato cam link that you gave me. I still have it. I still have it. And so, and the thing is, when you look at technology, so I'll go back to this. Number one, we got to respect it.
We got to respect it. We
Because
got to respect it.
It's here to stay, number one. And the truth of the matter is, if we're going to have a greater reach, we got to have technology.
And one of the things that comes along with that, in my experience, Pastor, is it becomes a draw for the younger people.
Yeah.
Because it gives them a place to employ their gift, their passion, and their creativity. And I think in addition to the technology Achilles heel, I think we also learned that we have a creativity Achilles heel. Because we were locked into one way of doing church. And I've talked to pastors in and outside of our community, even quote unquote mega church pastors that had to admit, one of the things that they had done is, one, they had cursed social media and then realized how valuable it was going to be. And then number two, because of that, they had alienated the younger people in the church. So the creative people, I coined this phrase during COVID, and on the post side, I said, the creative people are the new superheroes of the church.
Yes.
You know, they wear capes now.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they were able to creatively position the church to continue to preach the gospel and do it in a way that people wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
Barner did a study saying that when COVID first hit, it talked about the number of young people that were tuned in to various streaming services. And then it began to subside. And they discovered that number one, they zoomed in initially because they wanted to be fed.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on. The world was falling apart. They wanted answers. So they was hungry for what the church had to say. But then number two, they discovered that it began to subside because the cameras were not professional enough.
Yeah.
We didn't look good on camera.
Yeah.
You know, you would be up here, or me would be over here, and the camera would be over there somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And their attention span, well, what is this?
Right.
What is this?
Right.
So we lost them on that. And then this piece here was the telling piece for me when I read the study. It said that it didn't ask them to engage in anything.
Yeah.
It was this isolation. I'm watching a television program, but you're not really asking me to engage in anything.
Yeah.
And then the other part that it became too professional.
Yeah.
So it was like watching something, you know, that was produced by Hollywood. It became too professional. And so they began to subside. But that piece about engagement goes back to what you said early on. Discipleship.
Yeah.
In this time, I think one of the things that we discovered as well, one of the Achilles heel, was not only the creative piece was a gap, not only was the technology piece, but the discipleship piece.
You know, Will Mancini writes the book Future Church, and he was dead on in saying that COVID has revealed a whole lot of fake disciples. And that's a harsh word, but it's a true word. Because the reality is that those who were just going to church, their fix was gone.
Their fix was gone. Their fix was gone.
Could not attend. And so now, what do? It's like Peter when Jesus dies, I'm going back fishing.
That's a perfect analogy. And they're still fishing.
And they still fishing.
Many of them still fishing.
You know, and so it's one of those things to where you just said something though that just caught my attention about engagement. And I really believe even now, I mean, you just blessed me making that statement of engagement, because it's one thing to be able to stream and put a quality stream together and have a boom, great production going on. But the reality is, are we engaging?
And that's the other side of how we have to begin to process technology. Because I think sometimes we get satisfied. Okay, I streamed. The service went good. The sound was good. Okay, that was enough. But if you're not inviting, and I put it to the test, Pastor.
Okay.
Because during that time, we ended up feeding them. I don't want to quote numbers, but we ended up feeding thousands of people during COVID. And so when I read that report, I realized that I wasn't doing that. I wasn't inviting them in. So the first Sunday after reading that report, I made this announcement. Basically, I said, we're going to be feeding people in the parking lot here, and you don't have to be a member of Come As You Are to help us serve this community. No matter what church you belong to, or whether you're part of a church or not, come, let's serve the community. And people showed up. Young people showed up. And helped us serve because they were invited into something. They were asked to be a part of something.
And I think when you look at it, think about it, what does the Baptist Church offer to young adults? Most of our sanctuaries, and I'm saying this to my church now, most of our sanctuaries were built in the 50s and 60s, and they're outdated and will not serve our present day. And so I went to a church growth conference, and one of the things they talked about was the 3 places that people gather. And work was one, church was another one, but then the third place was where they gather. And the reality is that most churches that were built in the 50s and 60s don't have gathering space.
They do not.
And
They do not.
so again, a church is more attractive because they have this lavish foyer area where they can gather. They've got, coffee and lattes and monitors, that you're getting information from. And so we have to think in terms of, and in terms of what do we do by way of engagement, because as it relates to church and as it relates to where we are now, I teach a class now nationally, technology and discipleship.
Okay.
Marrying those two. And one of the things I talk about is that we have to begin to understand that, number one, technology is here to stay.
It's here to stay.
Number two, we need to learn how to use it at an advantage as it relates to discipleship, because again, think about this. Everybody has cell phones.
Everybody.
And that's the first thing they go to. Yeah. And nowadays, if you can't connect with your church some kind of way, through their cell phones, especially young adults, we're gonna miss them.
The church growth seen through the prism of spaces to gather,
Yeah.
I believe has to be both inside and outside.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I challenged our church probably 6 months ago.
Okay.
There were 3 acres of land directly across the street from us.
Okay.
And I said to them, we need to purchase the property. It was 50 grand. We need to
Okay.
purchase the property. But I want us to create an outdoor gathering space. This is what I said to them.
Okay. Okay.
I want us to create an outdoor gathering where the community can gather,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
the Wi-Fi is free,
Yeah.
and et cetera. Now, here's what I learned. Here's the experience we had. There would be young people outside in the parking lot from the apartment complex across the street who would come to this parking lot in the summertime and stand around this building, walk around this building, to play their games on their cell phone.
Wow.
Because we have free Wi-Fi.
Wow. That's major.
Huge.
That's major. That's major.
And so I said to the church, let's buy the property
Yeah.
and set it up like our own park
Yeah. Yeah.
and have the benches and stuff there where they can gather.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi is there, they can sit, and then we could use that as a part of our access into their life,
Yeah.
and subsequently evangelism
Yeah.
and discipleship
yeah.
occurs.
Yeah. That's major.
I'm a firm believer that we have to come to a place where we think outside of the box when it comes to church now.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I think back in August, we had a fellowship function at a Life Center. And well attended. Matter of fact, kind of packed. And so I said to my leaders of ministries, hey, here's what we need. We need to have a fellowship function every month. And it's easy to accomplish if ministries decide which month they're gonna take.
Wow. I like that.
And again, free food, games, because the reality is people have this perception of church that it's in the pew and the preacher has his robe on and he's preaching and the choir's singing and that's all it is to church. Well, I said to them, look, we gotta use the facility. We got 31,000 square feet down there. And we run after school program, summer school program, but I'm like, nah, we gotta start having events there every month. And so this month, on the 18th, we're having a Mardi Gras night, where you come wear your Mardi Gras beads and masks, fellowship functions, and I'm saying to them because the reality is this. If we don't think outside the box, we're gonna lose.
We're already losing. There's so many options.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people have options today, and everybody is a critic of the church.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody criticizes
Yeah.
the church, and the African American church probably gets more criticism than any other expression of the body
You're right.
or
You're right.
of
You're
the
right.
bride of
You're right.
Christ. You know, I was listening the other day when this guy was saying that nobody listens to a pastor, nobody listens to pastors anymore, and nobody listens to churches and folks anymore. Only people listen to churches and pastors is my grandmama. That's the only person that listens to it.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and it hit me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, at first I was mad, then I had to process it. What are we doing that caused him to come to that kind of conclusion? You know, and I think it comes back to what you said initially. We got to get back to discipleship. And COVID showed us that we really was better at gathering than going.
Yeah, man. You know, that's when you look at COVID and how it's left the church, and the state it's left the church in, it just revealed, you said this earlier, the cracks and the weaknesses, and literally what it revealed is that we really have not been doing what Jesus told us to do.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
You know, and so, you know, how do we change it? And, you know, it begins with leadership.
Yeah.
It begins with leadership, and the mind of the leader has to think beyond. Well, I got my ministry meeting on Tuesday, and we're gonna go over what we're gonna do Sunday, and that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is that we have to get to the place now where, and I believe this. I believe that God has ordained such a time as this, even COVID, to wake the church up, to get the church to realize, hey, you know, you gather.
Do a great job of gathering.
You gather. Yeah, you put on some great programs,
Yeah.
you know, but the reality is, are they discipled? And COVID says no.
No. COVID
No.
proved they weren't disciples.
No.
You know, one of the interesting things is you go back to, and when you said that, I was thinking about a piece that Bill Hybels wrote years ago, looking back at Willow Creek, and he was talking about the gathering piece.
Yeah.
And what they missed was the discipleship piece. You know, because of the number of people that came through the doors.
I remember him saying that. I remember that.
But they didn't end up with any, well, I won't say any, but they ended up very few disciples.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I think that in our quest for the numbers, we miss the discipleship piece.
Let me ask you a question. Because I heard that same message.
Okay.
I can remember just like yesterday him saying that. Matter of fact, he was saying he was mad.
Yeah, he was mad. He was mad. I remember on stage you saying.
But why did we hear it?
Why did we hear
Why
it?
didn't we hear it? Because the reality is, we just kept doing what we were doing.
We didn't hear it because and I'm not saying intentionally,
Right.
but that movement, that mega church movement, had focused everybody's attention on gathering.
Yeah.
The event.
Yeah.
The weekend event.
Yeah.
That's how it was marketed. The weekend event.
Yeah.
You know, and everything that went along with the weekend event. So we looked at it from a numerical perspective.
Yeah.
Not a discipleship perspective. And so, you know, when you look at a church that's the pastor's dual career.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, yeah, you can afford to say that because you done made the money at this time. I'm just speaking, you know, figuratively. So, and he said, I got to get these people in here because I got to pay these bills.
Yeah.
So gathering becomes the central motive.
You know, years ago, before I came to Fort Wayne, I used to go to the Willow Creek Conference every year.
Yeah.
I actually went.
I took leaders there.
Took a group of leaders there, and Bill had a day where he was going to meet and greet pastors, and I got a chance to grab him and say, "Hey, you know, how do you change a traditional church into a more contemporary church?" You know, and his answer was, "One at a time," and he walked off. And so I ran behind and said, "Wait a minute, wait, you know, what do you mean one at a time?" He said, listen. He said, people know me, he says, and they know what I stand for. They know who I am. And people, when they know you, they'll follow you, when they know you. And he says, you know, one at a time. Well, I know the story. He started with 25, you know, and you know, grew 25th anniversary at the United Center, 23,000 strong.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, I think we have traditionally been taught as pastors that we got to be up here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reality is that if we're going to have impact, that's not what Jesus did.
Yeah.
It's not what he showed us.
Yeah. That's not the Jesus model. No. No. And that is nothing wrong with numbers. We're not saying there's something wrong with numbers.
Right.
You know, be fruitful and multiply, if you would.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is this. We've gained a lot of members over time, but not a lot of disciples. And discipleship happens one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the leadership conference, you know, was a wonderful event. And you guys knocked it out the park. You know, it was everything that I wanted and then some. The challenge will be, what will we do now?
Well, speaking of it as a person that participated in it,
Yeah.
that was a facilitator in it,
Yeah.
I feel that same challenge.
Yeah.
What will I do with this knowledge that I glean and preparing prayerfully? What would I do and what I receive from the other presenter? What would I do
Yeah.
with what I experience in that context from people that I know that love the Lord
Yeah.
and want to do better?
Yeah.
My word, you know, do more.
Yeah.
Enlarge their tent.
Yeah.
And I've wrestled with that as someone that was a part of it.
Yeah.
You know, what do we need to do? Where are the holes at? And so much so, we had, in preparing for it, we had a meeting, a leadership meeting.
Okay.
And we were talking about something that we're going to do the end of this month here at Kayak. And I asked him, I said, okay, great idea, wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Where's the evangelistic piece?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the discipleship piece? How do we transform this into more than just an opportunity for us to get together and celebrate one another, which we need to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But what about the person outside? How do we get them in here? And I think that is the challenge, because I can speak for me. The faces that I see now, post-COVID, the majority of those faces I didn't see pre-COVID.
Yeah.
These are new folks.
New people. That's true. That's true.
And and for the most part, they're not church folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they've been in church all their life.
Yeah.
You know, and that presents a whole different needs assessment.
Yeah. You know, when you think about discipleship and you think about, you know, what do we do? You know, dead on. You know, my first church I pastored, I grew up in the church, and I left it for 10 years, and the pastor asked me to come back. And I preached 4 weeks in a row, pulled me in the back of the church and says, hey, I want to retire, but the church is not going to take you, but I'm going to make you assistant pastor in January. Turn it all over to you. You do the funerals, weddings, whatever. I'll be here when I'm here. Be ready every week. He gave me took me to the deacon and said, hey, get the reports to him. At that time, I started a Bible study. I went to the pastor, hey, you know, I want to start a Bible study, I want you to go. He said, no, you don't bring me nothing, just do it. I'd go back and say, hey, you want to start a young adult choir? He said, no, just, look, I'm telling you, don't do it. I started a young adult choir with 6 people. Mm-hmm. In less than a year, we had 80. Tell you how. We had a choir rehearsal every Saturday. And every Saturday, I required that we would, after choir rehearsal, go out and fellowship.
Wow. Wow.
Pizza, movie, softball game in the park. They started asking, hey, can my friend come? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, sure. Well, what time? I said, well, as soon as we get out of rehearsal. well, can they come a little early? I said, sure. Pretty soon, this literally starts happening. I believe when you rehearse in the choir, you don't go through the motions. It's Sunday morning.
It's Sunday morning. You practice like you go play.
Sunday morning.
Come on.
What started happening is people wanted to be a part of the church on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And so I started getting people saved in choir.
Wow.
And in the first 18 months, we took in 450 new members.
In 18 months?
In 18 months, 450 new members. Talk of the town. Pastors wondering, what is he doing? What is he doing over there? It was about the fellowship.
It was about the fellowship, the koinonia.
Rubbing shoulders. Hey, I was like Energizer Bunny everywhere. I started a drug ministry. I'd have 4 or 5, addicts with me all day, every day.
Yeah.
I'd pick them up in the morning and keep them all day so they wouldn't get high.
Yeah.
And so when you think about discipleship, man, it's about one-on-one. But here's the thing. We are afraid of what's out. You just said this. They don't look churchy. Church folks scared of folk that ain't churchy.
Church folks don't forgot that they used to look like that.
They
don't forgot what they used to look like.
That's the real issue. We've been in church so long, we just don't remember. I
was talking to a young person. This was several years ago. This person was, at the time I met them, they were at seminary. They was in seminary in Dallas. And they used to be a rapper. They lived in D.C.
Okay.
Used to do rap music and et cetera. But now they was finishing up a master's degree at Dallas and enrolled. No, they actually finished up a PhD.
Okay.
And I said, have you thought about using your experience, when you were part of a rap to reach those that are still involved in it?
Okay.
And this person said to me, I don't do rap no more. In no shape, form. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I said, you don't do it? Not even Christian rap? No, I don't fool with that.
Wow.
I said, so the very thing that God saved you from, you don't see it as a hook to go back or a reason to go back in that environment. I'm not saying you got to sing the same type of rap, but you ought to see it as a hook.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't deal with that. And I've talked to several that I don't want to deal with that no more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's your age group. That's your generation. I'd say to people, when David was dying, the word says that David fell asleep and he had ministered, paraphrasing, to his generation.
Yeah.
He had served his generation. And I think we miss that piece.
Man, when you think about where we've all come from, we've all got a story. And one of the things that I've learned through my own story is transparency.
Yeah.
I remember reading this, that if there's no transformation, there cannot be any transparency. And that resonated with me to the fact that, because if you're not transformed, you're still stuck. Yeah. So you can't be transparent because you're probably still stuck in some stuff. I've
Yeah.
learned over time to be transparent about my life. There's some things in life that I've done not as pre-salvation Pettus, not as saved Pettus, not as Reverend Pettus, not as Pastor Pettus, but I've done some things as President Pettus. And the point is, I've done some things in life that were sinful.
Yeah.
And I don't try to portray this holy lifestyle that I'm perfect. I try to get where people are and say, hey, no, listen. If you could just listen. Matter of fact, you remember I had told Morgan here December. We became good friends in those 2 days, just talking back and forth about stories, life stories. And the thing is this, when you look at, the church today, one of the things that young adults sniff out real quick.
Oh, you better preach.
It's fake.
Yes. They have antennas when it comes to fake, Doc.
And we have to learn how to undress.
Yeah.
We gotta learn how to undress because the reality is, it's what he saved me from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, initial salvation, yes, my name is written in the Lamb Book of Life, but now that sanctification process goes on until he calls me home. And I think we gotta realize that there's some growth that has happened and continue to happen, but don't be afraid. Paul says this, I'm a chief sinner. Even in Romans 7, when he says, hey, oh wretched man that I am, who can deliver me from the bodies of death? When you think about that, you got to think in terms of what are we portraying today?
I had a conversation earlier today with I won't call his name, and we was talking about reaching this generation. Mm-hmm. And we was talking about it within the context of the young couples in our church that are struggling.
Okay.
Particularly pastors.
Okay.
And their wives.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, that you and I had talked about doing some things, coming together and doing some things, and sitting around the table and chopping some things up, and he was very excited about that. And I said, one of the things that I think that we don't do well as Christians in general. Okay. Is this whole issue of transparency.
Yeah.
I said, I had a young person that looked at me and said, man, I can't do what you do. I ain't got that type of money. I ain't got that type of money. And I pulled him to the side. I said, what are you talking about? Well, you got that money. You get living that life. I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, I remember when my wife and I lived in a 3,000 apartment. And I was between jobs. I had to hide the car 3 blocks away to keep the repo man from finding it. So don't tell me, what are you talking? And I think, and he said, what? Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's my journey. That's a part of my story.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we don't connect because we don't want to be authentic to our story.
Yeah.
We don't want that meta narrative. We want to control it. Yeah. Rather than exposing the cracks in it, what we did wrong, and not just we could deal well with the cracks, if you would, on the pre-side of salvation.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about after you got saved, all the stuff we did crazy.
Yeah.
And that is it. Well, we got more to talk about. We have more to talk about, and we're going to talk about it here. Listen, you've been watching Fit Conversations, and this is just the first part of my candid conversation with none other than Pastor Pettus, and we're going to continue to do this. We're going to do a 2-part. But listen, here's what we do this for. This is our 2nd season of Fit Conversations, and it is all about being candid about the journey, having those conversations that we all need to have. Yeah. Those conversations that are fearless, intentional, and transformational. Yeah. And I pray that you've experienced that today. Listen, if you want additional information, maybe you have some topics that you would like for us to discuss, email me, pastor@kayak.org. Again, pastor@kayak.org, and I'll get it personally, and we'll consider putting them on as a broadcast. Thank you today for listening to Fit Conversations. May God bless you.